This is our final week of an extended journey of discovering the theme of Luke's two-volume narrative of first the life and teachings of Jesus, the Gospel according to Luke, and the early movement of those who followed Jesus, the Acts of the Apostles. Um, Next week, the Adult Education Ministry of Grace United Methodist Church in Winfield, we will begin a new series entitled At the Table: Freedom, Understanding, Reconciliation, and Grace. During this series, we're going to practice together a both and community of faith as we explore contemporary issues which are addressed in the 2024 revised social principles of the United Methodist Church. We look forward to weekly experiences of exploring issues which often divide the human community. But at the table of this early conclusion of the movement, at the table, followers who are committed to freedom, understanding, reconciliation, and grace, something other than division occurs. That's where we're headed next. But this week we wrap up our journey in Luke's narratives. Now, the best summary of the theme of these two volumes is in chapter 15 of the Acts of the Apostles. So if you're wondering what we've been trying to discover in Luke, listen to the message by Eugene Peterson of Peter taking the floor in the conference of Jerusalem and saying, quote, "So why are you now trying to out-God God, loading these new believers down with rules that crushed our ancestors and crushed us too?" Let me say that again. So why are you trying to out-God God, loading these new believers down with rules that crushed our ancestors and crushed us too? And after he said this, Peterson continues, there was dead silence. No one said a word. Well, in my words, that crushing by the rules that are referred to that crushed the ancestors and are crushing us too are the strings that were cut through Jesus' teachings and in the early movement. New wine requiring new wineskins, indeed, rather than old wine served as if it was new. Now, my answer to the question of why is this important? My answer is threefold. Because I think taking Luke seriously makes the difference, first, for individuals. Secondly, it makes a difference in the mission of the movement. And thirdly, it makes a difference in the life of the community of faith. So, first, Jesus, no strings attached, makes a difference for individuals. One of the clearest experiences of Jesus, no strings attached, in the faith of the individual, is the clearest example of that is Saul, who became Paul. In Paul's messages to the early followers of Jesus, a theme emerges that was not that prevalent in the teachings of Jesus, but was very prevalent in the teachings of Paul. And that is the theme of freedom. Obviously, one of the dimensions of freedom is freedom from. That's obvious in terms of what we've been talking about, freedom from the law and its many strings. But the other dimension of freedom is freedom for agape love. A faithful person, you see, is free in any situation to live for others rather than for oneself. A person of faith is free to have empathy for others, willing to walk in the moccasins of someone else in order to understand that person. This experience of freedom is found in so many stories of Jesus' teaching, which are told only by Luke. The Good Samaritan was free to have a relationship of agape love with the one who was in the ditch. He was free to do that without worrying about any restrictions. Indeed, the publican was free to pray the prayer of the humility. Indeed, the father of agape love was free to wait for his prodigal son to return. You see, this freedom for agape love in every life situation replaces obedience to the law and the rules and the regulations. Those rules and regulations may or may not be expressions of agape love. It's sort of hit or miss. But freedom and faith replaces the hit and miss nature of obedience and replacing it with the freedom for agape love. For what did Paul write to the Galatians in Galatians 5? For you were called to freedom. Only do not use your freedom as an opportunity for the flesh, but through love be servants of one another. You see, the value of Luke's narratives to the individual is the discovery of freedom in faith for agape love. Secondly, Jesus, no strings attached, makes a difference in the mission of the movement. Why do we exist as a community of faith? Why do we exist as a congregation? Why do we exist as a denomination? You see, the community exists not to serve ourselves, but rather our mission is to serve others. The stories of Luke and the Acts of the Apostles include the drama of the mission, first to themselves, the Jewish community of faith, then to the regions beyond Jerusalem, then to Asia Minor, then to the seat of the empire in Rome, and finally to the ends of the earth. See, agape love with no strings attached removes any restrictions concerning for whom agape love exists. It exists for the rich and the poor, the Jew and the Greek, the healthy and the fragile, the limited and the gifted. All are chosen, not just a few. As John Wesley said, the world is our parish, which includes the neighbors next door and the neighbors across the planet that we have not nor will ever meet in person. You see, the universal nature of agape love sets in stone the mission of the faith community. We do not exist to serve ourselves. We exist collectively to serve others. No strings attached. Third, Jesus, no strings attached, makes a difference in the internal life of the faith community. Dietrich Bonhoeffer wrote one of his books entitled Life Together. Life together for the community of agape love in which there are no fences, there are no classes, there are no privileges for some, no controls which are contrary to empathetic and sacrificial love. As Luke describes the response by observers of the early followers of Jesus, Luke writes, they are not drunk, they just love each other. And as Paul wrote to the church at Corinth, faith, hope, and love, the greatest of these is agape love. Then he wrote to the church at Galatia, the early movement in Galatia, the marks of our life together are the gifts of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Yes, you see, Jesus, no strings attached, clarifies with certainty the marks of our life together. Yes, we love each other. You see, discovering the uniqueness of Luke's narrative, the two books in the New Testament that often are not considered, but that's what we've been trying to do, consider them together, because it's the same theme. This series has been a journey of discovery for me. I hope it's been a discovery for you. And for your thought and conversation as we conclude, I just have one question. What are your stories of how Jesus, quote, no strings attached, has made a difference first in your life or the life of another? Secondly, in the mission of a faith community. And thirdly, in the internal life of the faith community. Thank you for walking the journey with us.